Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for extending that lovely welcome to my guests in the chamber this morning, and thank you to my guests for being here. Mr. President, I rise today to raise awareness of the occurrence of and need for further research into spontaneous coronary artery dissection, also known as SCAD, which is the #1 cause of heart attacks in women under the age of 50. I'd like to briefly give forewarning that I'll be sharing the story of someone who died from this condition. Spontaneous coronary artery dissection, or SCAD, is a condition that occurs when a tear forms in one of the inner layers of the blood vessels of the heart. This tear can slow or block blood flow to the heart, causing a heart attack, abnormalities in heart rhythm, and/or death. Women in their 40s and 50s are most at risk of SCAD, although it can occur at any age and also be experienced by men. The majority of people who develop SCAD are healthy with no known risk factors of heart disease, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, or high blood cholesterol. Responsible for around 25% of heart attacks in women under the age of 50, SCAD is the most common cause of heart attack for women who are pregnant or have just given birth. Research also shows that anxiety, stress and depression are more common in women after they've had a SCAD heart attack than for those who've had a ordinary or traditional heart attack. Mr. President, as you've said, joining us here today in the chamber is Mr. Mark Green and his son Joe, who sadly lost their wonderful mum and wife Ro in 2020. At the age of just 50, Ro tragically passed away after suffering a SCAD heart attack. I'd like to also acknowledge Ro's sister Kylie and her daughter Rihanna and thank them for also joining us today. Unfortunately, Mark and Ro's daughter Lara is unable to attend today due to school commitments. Yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of Ro's death, and I thank Mark for his courage in sharing Ro's story with me to share with you to help raise awareness of SCAD with the aim of saving lives. Mr. President, in mid-2020, Mark and Ro lived with their 2 children in Newtown. Ro had recently celebrated her 50th birthday, and like many other Tasmanians in the midst of the COVID pandemic, she took the opportunity to be outside and enjoy a walk with the family dog. Upon her return, Ro told Mark that she felt some discomfort in her chest, but both felt it was not too much to worry about as she was fit and healthy. However, when Ro's condition didn't improve, she went to the after-hours emergency department at Calvary Hospital. Unfortunately, COVID restrictions meant that Mark could only drop Ro at the hospital, and after some tests, it was discovered she was experiencing an abnormality with her heart, which was subsequently diagnosed as SCAD, and she needed to have emergency surgery. Ro rang Mark to say she needed to go to the Royal Hobart Hospital for assessment and treatment. Later that evening, doctors at the hospital called Mark to say Ro would need a relatively common operation. Unfortunately, Ro's operation didn't go as expected. When surgeons attempted to repair the tear, more tears occurred, causing major complications. Mark received a phone call from the doctor to tell him that Ro's heart was unable to be repaired sufficiently to function on its own, and she was to be taken to the ICU on life support. No one knew what the next hours and days would reveal, and it was a terribly traumatic time for Mark and his family. Ro required high-level care and was flown from Tasmania to the ICU at the Alfred in Melbourne, where it was revealed that she would ultimately need a heart transplant. Devastatingly for Mark and the children, COVID restrictions meant they could not accompany her and had to stay in Tasmania. Despite the best medical care, Ro did not recover, and she was flown back to Hobart to spend her last precious days with family before her life support was switched off, leaving Mark and their 2 children and broader family to navigate life without their much-loved wife, mum, sister, aunt, and friend. Mr. President, during the many weeks that Ro was in ICU in Melbourne, Mark made hundreds of phone calls to the Alfred Hospital. These calls involved long periods of time where Mark was on hold, often spending hours listening to the same generic on-hold music. After Ro's passing, Mark found himself having to contact many different organisations and found himself listening to that same generic on-hold music used by the Alfred Hospital. These moments were hugely triggering for Mark, taking him back to the gut-wrenching and uncertain moments when he would call the Alfred to check on Ro's condition. Many times he simply could not continue with the call. Indicative of Mark's altruistic nature, he realised there would be others experiencing this very same experience. So he wrote to the Alfred asking if the hospital would consider changing its on-hold music. To Mark's surprise, he was contacted by the Alfred Health's Chief Digital Health Officer, Amy McKim, who not only promised to change the on-hold music, but also to commission an original composition as a lasting legacy to Roe.
Oh my gosh.
Amy asked for Mark's help to create something in Roe's honour that would capture Roe's kind and caring nature. Amy was put in touch with composer Jess Wells, and together Mark and Jess created a beautiful composition called A Portrait of Roe. Mr. President, in what is a wonderfully touching outcome in the face of immeasurable grief, A Portrait of Roe now plays on the Alfred Health's telephone system to promote a sense of peace, calm and healing. A Portrait of Roe is an amazing legacy to an amazing woman who touched so many people with her kindness, warm nature and willingness to help others. In Mark's words, she lit up our lives like a billion stars. If this piece of music helps people to have a moment of calm, it's done magic, and that would be Roe. Mr. President, I would also like to acknowledge Mark's selfless efforts in raising awareness of SCAD and assisting the SCAD Research Inc. and the Victor Chang Cardiac Research Institute to raise valuable funds for life-saving research to help beat this condition. To this end, I encourage everyone to learn more about SCAD and even join me and Mark in the 2024 Skedaddle for Research at Carnelian Bay on Sunday 27th of October, or sponsor our fundraising efforts if you can't join us. Participants can either walk, skip or run, or dance, I suppose, the 5-kilometre track with family and friends to help raise awareness of SCAD and raise funds for more research into risk factors and preventative measures. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to some of my colleagues who have worn red today, which is the colour of the SCAD research efforts. So thank you to those of you who have worn red in solidarity. Thank you again, Mark, for what you have done to help others and continue to do to help others, and for allowing me to share your story here today. And I look forward to the walk with you on the 27th of October. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.